Speaking of things that won't go away, and the Epstein file saga, that's another one that just won't go anywhere. Even Joe Rogan is waiting.
They've got videotape, and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you have the director of the FBI on the show saying there's no tape. If there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible shit? Why did they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
Joe Rogan isn't the be-all, granted, but once an issue like this is started to talk about in the cultural sphere, I'm not quite sure how you get the genie back in the bottle. What does the government do from here, Army?
Look, it's a problem. You know, look, they say conspiracy theories is that old joke, how a gentleman dies and he goes to heaven. He asks God, who shot JFK? And God goes, Lee Harvey Oswald. And the guy goes, oh my God, the conspiracy has gone this high? Yeah, that's the problem with conspiracy theorists. There is no convincing them of reality, right? It's just the problem. It's an inherent problem with conspiracy theories and conspiracy theorists. I think I'll get back to Epstein and kind of what Joe Rogan, that clip you showed specifically. But look, there's a problem going on with these people in general. And you know, it's Joe Rogan, it's Dave Smith, the Jewish comedian, it's Tucker Carlson. There's a number of people using Epstein as a way to attack Jews and Israel. They keep going over this completely debunked, zero evidence whatsoever conspiracy theory that he was a Mossad agent. They continue to talk about that because they are looking for a handle to attack Jews. That's how sick and problematic this whole thing has become. But specifically talking about the release and the thousands of hours of child porn, look, the truth is this was very much mishandled by Pam Bondi and the DOJ. Okay, let's start with that. I'm not sure it would have avoided this whole problem because, again, conspiracy theorists cannot be convinced at the error of their ways, and they're wrong. But she really, really mishandled this, beginning with, if you remember earlier in the year, she brought all these kind of like young, influencers who were kind of naive to the White House and gave them the binders, right? Like, look, we've got the binders. We're going to release all the information. And they raised it above their head, and she humiliated them because there was nothing in those binders. She just gave, it was 200 pages of contact info and lists of people that we had for years, public information for years. So yeah, a lot of people are saying, well, you said this was everything, but this is stuff has been in the public view for a long time. It fueled, unfortunately, the conspiracy theories. And now it's being weaponized actually also against Trump. These are Trump supporters who are doing this. It's so weird. They're saying that he's trying to cover up his role in this, that he is probably mentioned. That's why he's not releasing it. Look, you know how I know that's not true? Because the Biden administration and the Democrats have had this information during the Biden administration and didn't release it. If there was any way of them to hang Trump for something like this, they would have released it. They didn't because he's not in it. Yet they're still using that to attack Trump. Look, we don't know exactly what these thousands of hours, but what we're told is in it is just child pornography, right? There's no list of people in office or powerful people. We know that doesn't exist. Dershowitz says it doesn't exist, and he was Epstein's lawyer. Yeah, the whole thing is just incredible, and it's showing these rifts we see even on the right.
And it's just interesting, unless something like this is dealt with properly or tidied up properly, it just feels like this piece of string is going to go on forever. So I'm not quite sure how they fix that. But another niggle for President Trump, and it's his bromance breakup with Elon Musk. Apparently Elon has changed his phone number. Here is Mike Johnson speaking with Miranda Devine.
I'm trying to be a peacemaker in all of it. I've reached out to Elon multiple times.
Have you? Since the blow up?
Yes. And I wanted he and the president to mend it up. And frankly, I think the president was of that mind as well. I sent him a long text message, and then his number changed.
That's
because
right.
After the blow up, something happened with his.
Yeah.
So I got the number later and realized I was sending it out into the ether somewhere. He never read it. So I look forward to meeting with him in person. We got to make that right. I got nothing against Elon.
Is this just a distraction from core business for the government, or is there anything here that actually needs explaining?
There is something to this. I think what it does do, aside from the rift, like Elon Musk saying that he's going to create a third party, the American Party, which would obviously hurt the Republican Party going forward if we're going to have this rift inside the party. Put that aside, it does point to the larger issue when it comes to tech bros and what they want and whether or not their alliance and support of Trump was temporary or long lasting. Look, the driving there's a number of factions within the Republican Party, and one of them are the tech giants. And they want something different than a lot of people in the Republican Party because they're looking for different perspectives. Some of it is personal, some of it is economic, some of it is based on defense. They're looking for subsidization of industries, and they're looking for deregulation. Those are their two main issues. And look, on some of it, I can see where they're coming from. For example, they think the only way to fight China on AI is subsidizing the R&D with it, right? Whether or not you agree with that, like I get that perspective. They want deregulation. They think that's going to spur our economy, and specifically with Elon Musk, I think there is something to the fact that this split happened because of his interest in what we just talked about, specifically with Tesla. That he was upset with the president when he didn't renew the EV mandates. And he didn't renew the subsidies to buy EVs. I think that's obviously it's a significant part of his business. I think he was upset with the president for that. And also the fact that he is afraid of lawsuits because when it comes to Tesla and a monopoly issue that Tesla may have in this business. So yeah, no, I think there is a reality to it, and I think it's going to affect the Republican Party.
Still on the economy, and we've seen a inflation uptick, and the rumours about Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell that he might not have his job for much longer. Trump has since denied this. What's actually going on?
Yeah, this could be an own goal by the president. I think it's a huge mistake to fire Jerome Powell. First of all, I'm not sure he has. In fact, I don't know he has. He doesn't have the legal authority to do it. But look, he's a president. He wants easy money, right? Most presidents do because it perks up the economy, but also causes inflation. We just saw an uptick in inflation. We had a number of good news when it came to inflation prior, but now we're seeing it creep up again. And I think it's directly tied, frankly, to the tariffs. I think that's what's creeping up inflation. And I think he's trying to counter that by wanting to have lower rates. Like I said, because it's going to pump up, give artificial stimulus to the economy. But that's not what we need, right? All presidents want that because they're looking for that economic stimulus, but that's not necessarily good for the economy at times. Sometimes it is. Right now, it's not when inflation is kind of coming up again. And what you're seeing is trying to get around. Look, the only way a president can remove the head of the Fed is what they call for cause. In other words, he had to have done something illegal. Or significantly problematic, not because of policy difference. You cannot legally remove him from that because it's an independent body, right? It's not connected to the government. And now you see kind of the president's allies trying to find these like weird ways to say we can remove him for cause. And they're pointing out to one thing specifically where he's doing a renovation of the Fed headquarters. And they're starting to say, well, you didn't get all the improvements approved by Congress like you're supposed to. So that's a reason why we're going to have you removed. It's ridiculous. It's going to make the president look bad. There's no need to do it. Really, you don't have to do it. And he's had all the success. The president had win after win after win. The people opposing him are going to point to that if he does that, as saying, see, anti-democratic. He's going against the laws. And the president doesn't need that. Won't help him. I think it's a mistake.
And sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. Now onto the New York mayoral race, and the bigwigs on Wall Street aren't necessarily enamoured with the Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani. How's that going to play out?
Look, it's, I guess we're going to be talking about Mamdani for a long time, at least through the year. And hopefully not further, but possibly because he's leading the polls. It was this weird meeting. He sat down with all the bigwigs, all the billionaires, all the industry leaders in New York. It didn't go well. I mean, he basically, every time Mamdani is asked something right, that is difficult. He has this ability to speak in long paragraphs that don't actually say anything. Like they asked him pointed questions and he simply just avoided it. He's able to speak in pithy, succinct terms when he's talking about his radicalism, right, and his Marxism and his anti-Semitism. He does that well. But when he's actually faced with tough questions, he goes to the Kamala Harris word salad mode because he's just trying to play out the clock, right? But it's talking in a long-winded way. And I think everybody in that meeting really got nothing out of it. The reality is, look, I said it, my hot take is I don't think he's going to win. I think ultimately he's leading the polls because the poll is being split, right, between Cuomo and the current mayor, Eric Adams. I think ultimately what's going to happen is those same billionaires that Mondani was speaking to, who had supported Cuomo significantly with millions and millions of dollars in the Democratic primary, are simply going to have a conversation with Cuomo, who is at this point not backing down because he is he really has one of the largest egos in all of politics. That says a lot, right? And they're going to say, look, if you want an ability to come back at all, ever, for any other race, you got to back down from this, right? We'll support you for other things, but you're clearly not going to win this race. Back out. Let's be a one-on-one. And I think if that's the case, Mamdani's going to lose. I think Eric Adams, who I don't love, but he is obviously the lesser of two evils, I think will win. And I think that's how it's going to play out.
And I think anyone who doesn't want government-run supermarkets is probably on the right track, particularly in the US. Now, lastly, there's been a huge focus, obviously, throughout the West since October 7 on this apparent genocide in Gaza. But in recent days, we've seen all these reports emerging out of Syria about the massacre of Druze populations by the jihadis who deposed the Assad regime. So what's happening in Syria, and where are the protests in the West?
Yeah. It's so funny. There's no protest in the West. Look, it reminds me of there's never an outcry from the left on like black violence in inner cities, right? They're never like, look, we have to put a stop to this because the vast majority of black deaths in America are from other black people. No, it's only when the rare circumstances when there's white on black death. Very similar. Look, the violence committed between sectarian violence, Muslim to Muslim violence, is legion, right? And it's in the millions of people who have died in recent years, right? You had in the Syrian civil war, you had nearly 750,000 people who were killed. ISIS killed almost 100,000 people in Iraq and Syria. You heard nothing from the West when it came to that. But when it comes to Israel, when it comes to the Jews who kill in the course of battle, right? Have have killed less than 50,000 people. Half of them combatants, right? Which, by the way, I want to stress again, is an unprecedented number in urban warfare. Where in urban warfare, the Urban Warfare Institute has said that 90% of urban warfare deaths are civilian. In this case, it's 50%. I think that speaks volumes how careful Israel is. No, there's not a peep about it. Only you see attacks on Israel. I think the whole incident is fascinating, and I'll be quick, is that Syria, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, Syria has the new regime has an ability to come to polite society and to the West, and Trump has created a peace deal with them. They allowed Israel to overfly Syria to attack Iran. They had an ability to come to the table to moderate and be part of the Western and the general world, and now they're squandering that by murdering these Druze who are fellow Arabs. And who's coming to their defense? Israel. Israel is coming to the defense of Arabs who are not Israelis because they want to put the slaughter to an end. I think the whole thing is fascinating. Of course, Israel get no credit from these Western jihadists.
No, but it's very, very interesting to watch it play out, and very interesting to watch the hypocrisy of the silence. Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time.